After 77 years, the London Philharmonic remains one of the world's great orchestras, founded by Sir Thomas Beecham in 1932 as Britain's answer to the much-acclaimed orchestras of Vienna and Berlin. The London Philharmonic has survived the bombing of Queen's Hall during World War II, launched the career of a 16-year-old Yehudi Menuhin, and seen its baton passed from one celebrated conductor to another. For the first time in 25 years, the London Philharmonic is touring Australia, taking in Perth, Brisbane, Sydney and the Melbourne Festival over the coming week. Ros Thomas was granted rare backstage access to the orchestra at work before its first concert in Perth.
It's 18 hours since the London Philharmonic landed in Perth, and while the players sleep off their jet lag, the backstage crew is hoping the 80 boxes of instruments have survived the journey intact.
Luckily, I've been doing it long enough, they trust me, I think.
In 31 years as transport manager for the orchestra, Ken Graham has seen it all, and all it's cost him is a bad back.
It's great. I managed to see the world. I've been to every continent bar the two cold ones. At somebody else's expense. What more could I want?
And you fell in love with a musician?
Yes. Yeah, Joan, she played cor anglais, English horn and the oboe. And we've been married for 22 years.
Thank you.
England's won the Ashes.
It's a very fulfilling job. It's a very hard job at times. It's a lot of hours, a lot of long days. But it's a thrilling environment to be in.
There are 3.5 tons of instruments. Some get their own seat on the plane, but most go by freight. And that's a problem in itself when they're valued at between $80,000 and $1 million each. How pedantic are the musicians about the way their instruments are stored and transported?
Very pedantic. It is an issue. It's very important for the instrument to be kept as a steady 20 degrees or so if possible. The wooden instruments, like the stringed instruments, the violins and violas, cellos and basses, because they can become unglued.
It's not unusual for a player to invest all of his money and to have his mortgage in his instrument rather than a house.
Tim Walker is the artistic director and the CEO. He's also the only Australian in an orchestra that boasts 26 different nationalities in the string section alone. And remarkably, this is one of the few orchestras in history to be owned by the players themselves, 80 of whom are £1 shareholders in a company which gives them tenure for life and the right to hire and fire their colleagues.
It gives us a certain freedom, and I think it's quite special to be in a self-governing orchestra, actually.
While the London Philharmonic has always been predominantly British, the advent of the European Union removed the barriers to continental membership, but that hasn't fractured its famously unique sound.
When it was established by Sir Thomas Beecham in 1932, it was to bring all the best players in London together into the one orchestra. And they established a sound from the very first concert which has been inherited through the different generations of players who have been there. And remember, some players are there all their careers, so it could be up to 40, sometimes beyond 40 years. And the fact that the players audition the players that are going to come in and join the orchestra means that you do have this continuing house style, if you like, a signature style.
How did you end up with the tuba at 11?
Well, it was the last one left in the music cupboard, and nobody else would play it.
Well, I started when I was 11, I'm 40 now, so I've been playing for 29 years.
I came home and I said, I've taken up an instrument. And I showed them something not as nice as this, something sort of fairly battered and dented. And my mum said, "Oh my God, Lee, what have you done?"
It's very hectic, but it's also a wonderful job. But you certainly have to have a lot of stamina, because sometimes we're working, like before we came on this tour, we were working for almost a month without a day off.
But it's the intense and passionate young Russian conductor Vladimir Jurowski who has catapulted the London Philharmonic back into the headlines with his dramatic style and movie star looks. The son of a conductor, at 37, he's fast gaining a reputation as the approachable maestro whose potency has not gone to his head.
I have made it actually very clear from the beginning that I was not interested in power as such, or in any power games. I am seeing myself as a vessel or vehicle for the music.
Some of the older conductors are quite, they rule with an iron fist, and they are the great maestro, and you know everyone is subservient to them. But Vladimir isn't really like that. Vladimir is the best thing that's happened to this orchestra since I've been in it, actually. He's brought something completely new to the orchestra, and I think we'll go a long way with him.
I've heard him referred to as Vladimir the Impaler.
Oh, yes.
I'm hoping that's an affectionate epithet.
Well, I think...
Where
yes,
does that come from?
I don't know. Is the sense that he's going to impale somebody with his baton, which is quite pointy, of course. He does seem to lean a lot into the orchestra, and with the baton there might be a sense that this is some sort of impaling instrument.
By far, the most lucrative work for the orchestra these days is film scores. But the great challenge for the London Philharmonic is to stay relevant in an era where music is accessible everywhere.
People who come into concert halls today, they know they'll get something from this experience which they can't get at home with their CD collection, and definitely can't get on their iPods.
First and foremost, what we do is live music. That's most important. But it is important to do big recording projects like The Lord of the Rings, because I think that people need to understand that that music just doesn't happen from some computer in Hollywood.
After 31 years, do you still get a thrill hearing them play?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, of course I do.